The silver spoon clinks against his teeth. It is the only sound cutting through the stillness of the frozen tent. The man holding it swallows a thick black syrup, wincing as the bitter taste floods his mouth. He waits. 1 minute, 2 minutes. Finally, the opium takes hold, dulling the fire in his stomach and quieting the tremors in his hands. He exhales. This is not a glimpse into a Victorian opium den. This is the everyday morning ritual of the most powerful figure on the planet. Marcus Aurelius. It is 175 AD on the unforgiving frontier of the Danube River. The man we revere as the godlike Stoic philosopher is, in truth, a 50-year-old wreck, physically shattered and chemically reliant on a concoction called theriac just to face the dawn. Before we plunge into these forgotten stories of endurance and hardship, if you enjoy uncovering the hidden truths of history, consider hitting that like button and subscribing for more content like this. And please drop a comment below to let me know where you're tuning in from. I find it incredible that we're exploring these ancient stories together from different parts of the world, connected across time and space by our shared curiosity about the past. Now, take a closer look at the man behind the myth. History remembers a marble god. Reality handed us a dying man, the real Marcus Aurelius, described vividly by his personal physician Galen, was a man falling apart. He coughed up blood. He could barely keep solid food down. He suffered from chronic chest pain that made breathing a struggle. Without that morning dose of opium-laced theriac, he couldn't stand, let alone command the greatest army in history. He pushes himself up from his cot and steps out of the tent. The cold air of Carnuntum hits him like a physical blow. But the cold is the least of his worries. He walks through the camp, and death greets him at every turn. Carts trundle past, their wheels sinking deep into the mud, piled high with stiff, blue-lipped corpses. The Antonine Plague is tearing through. The legions, it strikes fast. Fever, vomiting, throat ulcers, and finally black pustules covering the skin. Marcus watches his elite Praetorian guard collapse in the mud, drowning in their own fluids. He hears the screams of delirious soldiers begging for water that no one can bring them. He isn't reading about tragedy in a library. He is wading through it. This is the brutal context of Stoicism that modern philosophy classes often overlook. When Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Death smiles at us all a man can do is smile back," he wasn't being poetic. He was staring at a pile of burning bodies. He was trying to find a reason not to scream. He retreats back into the tent. He lights a lamp. He pulls out a papyrus scroll. This is where the magic happens. He doesn't write to lecture an audience. He writes to survive the night. Scholars analyze the meditations as a masterpiece of logic. But look closer at the text. It is a desperate, repetitive exercise in self-hypnosis. He scribbles the same ideas over and over again. Pain is neither unbearable nor everlasting. He repeats it because he is in pain right now. The mind is the ruler of the soul. He repeats it because he feels his control slipping. He is using philosophy as a psychological shield. He battles the panic of the plague, the pressure of the Germanic invasion, and the agony of his own body by forcing his mind into a fortress of rationality. He is a man holding up the sky, refusing to let it crush the world. Even as his own shoulders are cracking under the weight, most men would have broken. Most emperors would have fled to the safety of coastal villas, leaving the generals to die in the mud. Marcus stays. He endures the freezing rain. He endures the stench of rotting flesh. He endures the opium withdrawal that hits him every evening. Why? What drives a man to choose this hell when he owns the world? To answer that, we have to strip away the armor and the gray beard. We have to go back to Rome 50 years earlier. We need to find a small, serious boy named Marcus Annius Verus, walking through the halls of power, completely unaware that a dying emperor is watching him from the shadows, plotting a destiny that will cost the boy his happiness and save the Western world. Cut the darkness, smash into the blinding sunlight of Rome. 138 AD. The air smells of jasmine and hot stone, not rotting flesh. We are in the imperial palace, a sprawling labyrinth of marble and power. Walking through the colonnades is a boy. He is 17, with curly hair and eyes that seem too old for his face. His name is Marcus Aurelius Verus. He is not like other Roman teenagers. While his peers are betting on chariot races or chasing tavern girls, Marcus is busy annoying his tutors. He asks too many questions. He obsesses over truth. He wears a rough, scratchy Greek cloak instead of fine wool. At night, he refuses his soft bed to sleep on the cold floor, imitating the ancient ascetics until his mother physically forces him back onto a mattress. He wants to be a philosopher. He wants to live in the world of ideas, invisible and free, but he is being watched. Shadowing him is a dying predator, Emperor Hadrian. Hadrian is terrifying. He is brilliant, artistic, and ruthlessly violent. He has spent his reign purging the Senate and executing rivals. His health is failing, his heart is giving out, and he has no son. He needs an heir who won't destroy the Roman Empire history has worked so hard to build. Hadrian looks at the boy. He doesn't call him Marcus. He calls him Vericimus, the most truthful. He sees something in the boy's serious demeanor that no one else sees. A capacity for absolute, grinding duty. So Hadrian executes the most complex political bank shot in history. He summons a respected 50-year-old senator named Antoninus Pius. The deal is brutal and non-negotiable. Hadrian tells Antoninus, "I will adopt you as my son and make you emperor. But in exchange, you must adopt this boy, Marcus, and make him your heir. It is a contract written in blood and time." Hadrian is effectively skipping a generation, using Antoninus as a placeholder, a warm chair to ensure Marcus is mature enough. When he takes the throne, when the news reaches Marcus, the reaction is shocking. Most men in Rome would kill their own brothers for a shot at the purple robe. When Marcus finds out he has been chosen, he doesn't celebrate. He doesn't throw a feast, he weeps. His biographers record that he was terrified. He stares at his servants with genuine horror. He knows exactly what this means. He is a student of history. He knows that absolute power destroys the soul. He knows the throne is a gilded cage that will strip him of his privacy, his studies, and his freedom. He argues, he pleads, but you do not say no to Hadrian. Overnight, Marcus Aurelius Verus dies. Marcus Aurelius is born. He moves into the palace of the Caesars. The rough cloak is replaced by silk. The silence of his study is replaced by the noise of the court. For the next 23 years, he lives in the shadow of his adoptive father, Antoninus. This is the golden age, the Pax Romana at its peak. But for Marcus, it is a 23-year apprenticeship in self-denial. He learns to listen to boring speeches without yawning. He learns to sign death warrants. He learns to hide his true feelings behind a mask of calm politeness. He is training for a role he hates, but fate has a twisted sense of humor. Hadrian's plan was perfect on paper. Raise a philosopher to rule the world, but Hadrian made one critical miscalculation. He didn't just force Marcus to be the heir. He forced Marcus to share the burden. In a move that baffled the Senate, Hadrian also mandated the adoption of another boy, a younger, wilder, and far less serious child named Lucius Verus. Marcus would not rule alone, and this decision would plant the seeds for the chaos that would later consume his reign. The serious boy and the party boy were now brothers, bound together by the command of a dead man, marching toward a cliff edge that neither of them could see. March 7th, 161 AD, the waiting game ends at a villa in Lorium. Antoninus Pius, the man who held the peace together for 23 years, indulges in a snack of Alpine cheese at dinner. He develops a fever during the night. A few days later, he is dead. The safety net is gone. The Senate immediately moves to secure the succession. They want stability, they want intellect, they want Marcus, They offer him the title of Imperator, absolute, singular power. Marcus looks at the senators. He sees the panic in their eyes. He knows they are terrified of a power vacuum. He holds all the cards. He could accept the wreath, exile his unpredictable adoptive brother, and rule as the sole philosopher king. He does the opposite. He refuses the throne. He tells the bewildered senators that he will not accept power unless Lucius Verus is invested with equal powers. He demands they be co-emperors. The Senate is horrified. Rome has hated kings since its founding. One emperor is a necessary evil. Two is a constitutional monstrosity. A two-headed monster cannot rule a single body. It invites civil war. It invites chaos. But Marcus is immovable. He forces their hand. The Senate capitulates. For the first time in history, Rome has two masters. Why? Historians have puzzled over this for centuries. Was it brotherly love? A sense of duty to Hadrian's dead wishes? Look closer at the man we know Marcus to be. He is pragmatic. He is exhausted. He knows his own limitations. He is a bookworm, a frail administrator who hates violence. He knows the empire is too big for one man to manage. He needs a partner. More specifically, he needs a proxy. He needs someone who can wear the armor, ride the horses, and look good in a parade while he stays in Rome and does the actual work of governing. So, the odd couple era begins. The contrast between the two is almost comical. Marcus is the designated driver of the Roman Empire. He works from dawn until dusk. He sits through endless court cases, obsessing over minor legal details to ensure justice is served. He sells off imperial furniture to balance the budget. He is boring, reliable, and utterly devoted to the state. Lucius Verus is the frat boy with an unlimited credit card. Lucius is tall, handsome, and has a blonde streak in his hair rumored to be gold dust he sprinkles on himself. He loves chariot racing. He loves gambling. He loves drinking until dawn in the seedy taverns of Rome, disguised as a commoner, getting into fistfights for the thrill of it. While Marcus is writing about the vanity of existence, Lucius is proving that existence can be quite fun if you are the emperor. But the arrangement works. Marcus handles the brain work. Lucius handles the public relations. The people love Lucius because he is approachable and entertaining. They respect Marcus because he is just, it seems like the perfect balance. The Pax Romana, the Roman peace, feels eternal, but the universe has a way of punishing complacency. Nature strikes first. The Tiber River floods, bursting its banks and drowning the grain stores. Famine grips the city. Marcus works frantically to import wheat, stabilizing the panic. Then the hammer drops. In the east, the Parthian Empire, Rome's only true rival, decides to test the new, inexperienced emperors. Their general enters Armenia, wipes out a Roman legion, and kills the governor. This is not a border skirmish. This is an invasion. Marcus faces his first true crisis. He cannot lead the army. He has no military experience, and his health is too fragile for the harsh Eastern Front. He looks at Lucius. This is the moment the partnership was built for. Marcus sends Lucius to the east. It is a brilliant move. If Lucius wins, Rome is safe. If Lucius fails, the blame falls on the junior partner, and perhaps Marcus hopes the rigors of war will finally mature his reckless brother. Lucius packs his bags, but he doesn't pack strategy maps or philosophy books. He packs his actors, his musicians, and his hunting dogs. He turns the march to war into a traveling festival. Marcus watches him leave Rome. He returns to his silent palace. Surrounded by stacks of legal documents, he breathes a sigh of relief. He is alone. He can finally focus. He has no idea that Lucius is not just bringing an army to the east. He's walking into a trap that will unleash a force far deadlier than any Parthian arrow. While Marcus balances the books in Rome, Lucius Verus arrives in Antioch, the glittery resort city of the east. He takes one look at the rugged mountains leading to the Parthian front lines and decides that war is better managed from a distance specifically. From the luxury of a villa filled with beautiful women and endless wine, for 4 years, while Roman legionaries bleed in the desert, Lucius oversees the logistics of his own entertainment, but the Roman war machine doesn't need an emperor to kill. It needs a general. Enter Avidius Cassius. Remember this name? Cassius is everything Marcus is not. A Syrian-born warlord, ruthless, arrogant, and brilliant. He doesn't care about philosophy. He cares about discipline. When he takes command, he whips the soft, demoralized Eastern legions into a pack of wolves. He unleashes them on the Parthian war. The campaign is a slaughter. Cassius smashes through the Parthian defenses. He marches down the Tigris River, burning everything in his path. In 165 AD, he reaches the twin jewels of the East, Seleucia and Ctesiphon. The Roman army does what it does best. They sack the cities, they torch the palaces, they massacre the inhabitants. It is a total victory. The Parthian threat is annihilated, but in the smoke and ruin of Seleucia, something goes wrong. Legend tells us that a Roman soldier looting the temple of Apollo found a sealed golden casket. Driven by greed, he pried it open, hoping for jewels. Instead, a foul vapor escaped, carrying a curse from the gods. The reality was less mystical, but far more deadly. The soldiers were packed into tight quarters, raping and pillaging in a city that was a biological time bomb. Someone coughed. Someone touched a contaminated cloth. A microscopic hitchhiker jumped from a local host to a Roman lung. It was likely smallpox, a virus the Roman immune system had never seen. The war ends. The legions pack up their loot. They begin the long march home to Italy, but they are not. Returning alone, they carry the great pestilence in their bloodstreams. As the army marches west, they leave a trail of corpses. Villages that cheer the returning heroes on Monday are silent by Friday. A virus moves along the famous Roman roads. The internet of the ancient world spreading with terrifying efficiency. Back in Rome, Marcus and Lucius prepare for a massive triumph. It is October 166 AD. The city is delirious with joy. The crowds roar as the two emperors ride through the streets in a chariot drawn by 4 white horses. They wear purple robes, embroidered with gold palm leaves. Behind them, wagons overflow with Parthian treasure. It looks like the apex of the Golden Age. It is actually the beginning of the end. Within weeks of the parade, the Parthian sickness explodes in the eternal city. Rome becomes a death trap. The density of the population, 1 million people packed into tenements, turns the capital into an incubator. 2,000 people die every single day. Imagine the logistics of that horror. There aren't enough carts to move the bodies. The smell of burning flesh from the funeral pyres chokes the air, turning the sky a permanent gray. The healthcare system collapses because the doctors are dying faster than the patients. Galen, the great physician, flees the city in fear. He later returns, summoned by Marcus, to describe the symptoms. Fever that feels like fire inside the bones, pustules that turn black and scab over, diarrhea that drains the life out of a man in hours. The economy freezes. Farms are abandoned because there is no one to harvest the wheat. The tax base evaporates. The army, the very tool that brought the disease home, is decimated. Entire legions exist only on paper. Marcus stands in the center of this apocalypse. His partner Lucius is useless, still partying, still in denial, perhaps terrified into inaction. Marcus has to handle it alone. He acts with characteristic serenity. He presides over religious ceremonies to appease the gods, though he likely doubts their efficacy. He changes burial laws to prevent infection. He weeps for the dead, not just in private, but in public speeches. But the universe isn't done with him yet. Just as the empire is on its knees, gasping for air, the vultures begin to circle. Up north, beyond the Danube, the Germanic tribes have been watching. They see the border forts empty. They see the smoke rising from the burning pyres. They smell weakness. For the first time in centuries, the barbarians don't just raid. They invade, they cross the Alps. They step onto Italian soil. The nightmare has officially begun. Panic. That is the only word to describe the mood in Rome in 168 AD. The impossible has happened. The Germanic tribes, the Marcomanni and the Quadi, have smashed through the Julian Alps. They are besieging Aquileia, a city on Italian soil. The psychological blow is massive. No foreign enemy has touched Italy in nearly 300 years. The safety of the core is shattered. The mob in Rome demands action. They want the legions to march. They want the barbarians crushed. But war costs money, and Rome is bankrupt. The Antonine Plague has obliterated the tax base. The mines are closed because the miners are dead. The farms lie fallow. The treasury is a hollow echo chamber. Marcus faces a brutal choice. To raise the funds for a counterattack, he could levy a special tax on the citizens. It would be easy. It is what most emperors would do. Squeeze the dying population to save the state. Marcus refuses. He will not bleed a people who are already bleeding. Instead, he orders the imperial servants to empty the palace. Picture the scene in the Forum of Trajan. It is a cold, gray morning. The most exclusive estate sale in history is underway. The auctioneer stands on a podium, shouting bids not for cattle or slaves, but for the personal treasures of the Caesars. There, glittering in the winter sun, are the golden goblets Hadrian drank from. There are the silken robes of the Empress Faustina. Woven with gold thread, there are crystal vases, jeweled daggers, and priceless statues collected over generations. Marcus stands by and watches. He is selling his own life piece by piece. He auctions off the very symbols of his power to pay the wages of the soldiers. For 2 months, the sale goes on. It sends a shockwave through the empire. It tells the people, I am not above you. I am in this with you. With the money raised, he rebuilds the army. He recruits slaves, gladiators, and even bandits into the legions. A desperate, Dirty Dozen-style force. Then he does something even more drastic. He puts away his toga and dons the sagum, the heavy wool cloak of a general. He grabs the spear. The philosopher king is dead. The warlord is born. He marches north, and this time, he drags Lucius Verus with him. But Lucius is a spent force. The years of excess have caught up with him. Just as the campaign begins near the city of Altinum, Lucius suffers a stroke. He dies in a carriage, foaming at the mouth. Marcus is finally, truly alone. He grieves, but he does not stop. He sends the body back to Rome and turns his horse toward the Danube. The Marcomannic wars that follow are not the glorious battles of legend. There are no wide-open fields for cavalry charges. This is a gritty, grinding, Vietnam-style conflict in the dense, freezing forests of Central Europe. The enemy is terrifying. The Germanic warriors are giants compared to the Italians. They paint their bodies black to fight at night. They know the swamps. They lure the heavy Roman legions into mud pits and ambush them from the tree line. Marcus, a man who spent his life in libraries, is now living in a tent in the middle of a frozen hell. He learns to read maps. He learns to tolerate the sight of decapitated heads stuck on pikes. He learns that philosophy doesn't stop an arrow, but it keeps you standing when the arrow misses. He spends the next decade, the rest of his life, essentially on this frontier. He acts as the dam holding back a tidal wave of barbarism. He is the only thing standing between civilization and the Dark Ages, and in the silence of his tent, surrounded by the snoring of his guards and the howling of the wolves, he begins to notice something. His mind is changing. The stress is forging. Something hard and brilliant inside him. He dips his quill into the ink. He looks at the blank parchment. He writes a sentence that will echo for 2,000 years. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. He isn't writing literature. He's writing a survival guide. Open the book. Read the first line you see. It probably sounds calm, almost detached. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. It sounds like a greeting card. It sounds like something you would see on an inspirational poster in a dentist's waiting room. But context is everything. To understand the true power of the Meditations, we must stop reading it as philosophy and start reading it as a medical chart. This is a record of a mind fighting for its life. Marcus didn't write these words to sound smart. He wrote them to stop screaming. Let's look at the evidence. Carnuntum, 172 AD. The reality? A scout rides into camp. He brings news that a peace treaty has been broken. The Iazijas tribe has ambushed a Roman convoy. They didn't just kill the soldiers. They tortured them. They beheaded the centurions and mounted the heads on the saddles of their horses. Marcus has to ride out and inspect the carnage. He sees the mutilated bodies of men he shared bread with just days ago. He sees the cruelty of human nature in high definition. The anger boils in his blood. The urge to massacre every barbarian in the valley is overwhelming. The entry. That night, shaking with rage, Marcus forces his hand to move across the parchment. He writes, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." He isn't preaching forgiveness. He is restraining his own inner monster. He's telling himself, if I become a beast to defeat the beasts, I have lost Sirmium. 174 AD. The reality. Another child dies. Marcus and Faustina had 13 children. Only 5 would outlive him. The death of a child in antiquity was common, but it was never easy. He watches a fever take his young son. Titus, the boy gasps for air, his skin turning gray, until the silence fills the room. The grief is a physical weight, a black hole threatening to swallow the emperor's will to lead. The entry. He sits by the small coffin. He dips the quill. He writes about leaves. Leaves that the wind scatters on the ground. Such are the generations of men. He writes that his son was never his. The boy was lent by nature, and nature has called in the dead. He isn't being cold. He is cauterizing the wound in his heart, so he can stand up and command the army the next morning. This is the mechanism of the inner citadel. Marcus realized that he had zero control over the external world. He couldn't control the plague, the weather, the barbarians, or the lifespan of his children. If he pinned his happiness on these things, he was doomed. So he retreated inside. Modern psychologists look at the Meditations and see something familiar. It is the ancestor of cognitive behavioral therapy. The core principle is identical. It's not the events that upset us, but our judgment of the events. When Marcus writes, "Throw away your opinion and you are saved," he's practicing cognitive reframing. He's looking at a pile of rotting corpses and telling himself, this is nature. It is matter changing form. It is not evil. It just is. He dissects reality to rob it of its power. He describes a purple imperial robe as mere sheep's wool dyed with shellfish blood. He describes sex as the friction of a piece of gut and the ejection of some mucus. Why? Such graphic, unromantic language? Because he was surrounded by seduction and terror. He needed to strip things down to their biological components to stop them from controlling him. If the emperor's robe is just dyed wool, then the power it represents is an illusion. If death is just a rearrangement of atoms, then fear is unnecessary. He was performing surgery on his own perspective. But the hardest test was not grief or war. It was people. Marcus was an introvert forced to interact with the most ambitious, lying, scheming sycophants in the world. Every day people lied to his face. Every day they asked for favors. He opens Book 2 with a reminder that reads like a pep talk for a man dreading his morning commute. Begin the morning by saying to yourself, I shall meet with the busybody, the ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, envious, unsocial. He lists them all. He anticipates the frustration, and then he concludes, but I cannot be injured by any of them, for no one can fix on me what is ugly. He built a fortress in his mind, where anxiety could not breach the walls. But even the strongest fortress has a cracking point, and for Marcus, that cracking point came when the laws of nature seemed to break down entirely, and he was forced to rely on something he despised. A miracle summer 174 AD, somewhere in the scorched plains of modern-day Slovakia, the Legio 12 Fulminata. The Thunderbolt 12th Legion is dying, but they aren't dying from swords or arrows. They are dying of thirst. The Quadi tribe has executed a perfect trap. They have lured the Roman detachment into a bowl-shaped valley and cut off all retreat. Then they simply waited. For 5 days, the sun hammers down on the Romans. The heat radiates off their armor, cooking them alive in their own metal shells. The horses collapse first, their tongues swollen and black. Then the men start to drop. The Quadi warriors stand on the ridges, mocking them. They know they don't need to fight. They just need to wait for the Romans to turn into dust. Marcus Aurelius is there. He watches his army disintegrate. The discipline that holds the legion together is evaporating. Men are drinking horse urine. Some are delirious, digging at the dry earth with their fingernails, praying for moisture. That isn't there. The emperor raises his hands. He is desperate. According to Roman tradition, he is the Pontifex Maximus, the chief priest. The bridge between the gods and men. He prays, and then the impossible happens. The sky, previously a relentless blue, turns a bruised purple. Thunder cracks, not in the distance, but directly overhead. A torrential downpour explodes onto the battlefield. It is chaos. The Romans throw their heads back, catching the water in their mouths, and their helmets, and their shields. They drink the mix of mud, water, and blood. At the same moment, lightning strikes the Quadi lines. The barbarians panic, terrified by the sudden fury of the heavens. The Romans, revitalized by the divine water, charge. They slaughter the confused enemy. The trap is broken. The legion is saved. This event, known as the miracle of the rain, becomes an instant legend. But almost immediately, a propaganda war breaks out over who exactly sent the storm. For the Christians serving in the legion, the answer is obvious. They claim they prayed to their God, and he answered. They rebrand the 12th Legion as the Legio Fulminata, the Thundering Legion, to honor this divine intervention. This story spreads like wildfire in the growing Christian underground. For the traditionalists, it was Mercury, the air god, or perhaps Jupiter himself, answering the pious emperor. But there is a darker, stranger version of the story. Historical records whisper about an Egyptian magician named Arnophis, who was traveling with Marcus. Rumors circulate that Arnophis performed a secret, forbidden ritual, summoning aerial demons to manipulate the weather. Marcus, the Stoic who believes in logic and nature, stands in the middle of this swirling Roman superstition. What does he believe? Look at the column of Marcus Aurelius standing in Rome today. The scene is carved in stone. It doesn't show Jesus. It doesn't show Jupiter. It shows a terrifying, giant river god, his hair streaming with water, drowning the barbarians while reviving. The Romans, Marcus likely viewed it with characteristic pragmatism. He didn't care if it was a god, a demon, or a freak low-pressure system. It worked. He accepts the victory not as a sign of divine favor, but as a lucky roll of the dice in a chaotic universe. With the Quadi broken, the momentum shifts. The Roman machine grinds forward. By 175 AD, victory is within reach. The tribes are surrendering. Marcus is on the verge of annexing the territory, creating 2 new provinces, Marcomannia and Sarmatia. He is about to solve the northern security problem forever. He sits in his tent, drafting the terms of surrender. He can finally see the end of the war. He can almost see the road back to Rome. But the road back to Rome is blocked not by barbarians, but by a letter. A messenger arrives from the east. He is covered in dust, his horse nearly dead from exhaustion. He carries a dispatch from Syria. Marcus breaks the seal. The news is worse than the plague. It is worse than the Quadi trap. Avidius Cassius, the hero of the Parthian War, the man Marcus trusted with absolute power over the East, has declared himself emperor. The civil war has begun. Why does a loyal dog bite its master? Avidius Cassius was not a fool. He was the Iron Man of the East, a disciplinarian who executed soldiers for looting without permission. He knew the might of the Roman legions better than anyone. So why did he declare himself emperor while Marcus was still alive? It was a mistake born of love and fear. The rumor started in Rome. Marcus Aurelius is dead. The sickly emperor has finally succumbed to the plague or the cold of the Danube. The source of this rumor? Many historians point to the empress herself. Faustina, before we judge her as a Lady Macbeth, look at her reality. She is a mother surrounded by wolves. Her husband is dying. Her only surviving son, Commodus, is a fragile child of 13. If Marcus dies without a strong protector standing by, the Senate or the generals will tear her family apart. She needs a strong man. She writes to Cassius, the most powerful general in the empire. If anything happens to Marcus, take the throne. Save us. Cassius receives the letter. He hears the rumor. He believes the throne is empty. He declares himself emperor to save Rome from chaos. He seizes Egypt, the granary of the empire. He cuts off the wheat supply to Rome. Then the truth arrives. Marcus is not dead. He is very much alive. And he is marching south. Cassius is now trapped. He has crossed the Rubicon. He cannot say, sorry, my mistake. He has to fight. A civil war is on in the Roman world. This is usually where the purge begins. The emperor screams treason. Heads roll, families are executed. Spies are sent out to slit throats. Marcus Aurelius does none of these things. He gathers his troops on the Danube. He stands before them, looking not angry but exhausted. He gives a speech that completely defies the logic of power. He tells the soldiers that he is not angry at Cassius. He calls Cassius a friend who has been misled. He tells them that his greatest wish is not to kill the rebel, but to capture him alive. I wish to forgive him, Marcus says. I wish to show the world that even in civil war, there is room for clemency. He goes further. He tells the army that if the danger were only to himself, he would gladly step down and let Cassius rule if that is what the good of Rome required. But the Senate has declared Cassius an enemy, so they must march. He marches east, not as a conqueror, but as a judge, hoping to dismiss the case. But the world is not ready for a philosopher king. The soldiers under Cassius realize they have backed the wrong horse. They know Marcus is coming. They know the legions of the Danube are battle-hardened killers. Panic sets in. The rebellion lasts 3 months and 6 days. It ends not with a battle, but with a knife in the dark. A centurion named Antonius, eager to save his own skin, walks up to Cassius while he is walking and stabs him in the neck. The civil war is over before it began. Antonius cuts off Cassius's head. He preserves it. He rushes to meet Marcus, expecting a reward. He presents the gruesome trophy to the emperor. Smiling, Marcus looks at the severed head of his old friend. He recoils. He covers his eyes. He refuses to look at it. He orders the head to be buried immediately with full honors. He does not reward the assassin. He sends him away in disgrace. He arrives in the east. The files of the conspiracy are seized. They contain letters, names of senators who supported Cassius, a list of everyone who betrayed Marcus. His advisors urge him to read the letters. You must know who your enemies are. They say, you must purge the Senate. Marcus takes the bundle of scrolls. He walks over to a brazier. Without looking at a single name, he drops the papers into the fire. He watches them burn to ash. He explains, I do not wish to know. If I know my enemies, I will be forced to hate them. I will be forced to punish them. I want to live with a free mind. He grants a blanket pardon to everyone involved. Cassius's children are spared. His property is protected. It is a moral victory that stuns the ancient world. But this act of mercy consumes the last of Marcus's energy. He is old, he is tired, he has saved the borders, he has saved the peace. Now he must attend to the one thing he neglected while saving the world. His son. He looks at Commodus. The boy is now 15. He is handsome, strong, and completely uninterested in philosophy. He likes the roar of the crowd. He likes blood. Marcus has a choice. He can adopt a capable general to succeed him, as Hadrian did, or he can give the throne to his own flesh and blood. For the first time in his life, the Stoic lets his heart overrule his head, and the world will bleed for it. If you have seen Ridley Scott's masterpiece Gladiator, you know the story. The wise, dying Marcus Aurelius looks at his corrupt son. Commodus realizes the boy is a monster and decides to disinherit him. He tries to give the empire to a virtuous general named Maximus to restore the republic. Then, in a fit of rage, Commodus murders his father. It is a fantastic story. It is cinematic gold. It is also complete fiction. The reality of the succession crisis was far more complex, far more tragic, and far more politically inevitable than a movie script could ever portray. Marcus Aurelius did not die wondering who would succeed him. He didn't have a Maximus. He had been preparing Commodus for the throne since the boy was a toddler. In 177 AD, 3 full years before Marcus died, he had already named Commodus Augustus. They ruled together. They appeared on coins together. There was no hesitation. Why was Marcus blind? Did the wisest man in Rome fail to see that his son was, to put it mildly, unstable? To understand his choice, we have to understand the brutal rules of Roman inheritance. For the previous 80 years, Rome had been ruled by the 5 good emperors. None of them had biological sons. They had to adopt the best man for the job. This created a meritocracy by accident. Marcus was the curse of the streak. He was the first emperor in a century to have a biological son survive to adulthood. This changed everything. In the Roman mind, being born in the purple meant Commodus had a divine right to rule. The army was loyal to the bloodline, not just the philosophy. Here is the nightmare scenario Marcus faced. Option A. He chooses a capable general to succeed him. But Commodus is still alive. As long as Commodus draws breath, he is a threat. Rebel factions will use the boy as a figurehead to start a civil war, to secure the throne for the general. Marcus would have to do the unthinkable, order the execution of his own son. Option B. He gives the throne to Commodus and prays that good advisors can control him. Marcus was a Stoic, but he was not a murderer. He could not kill his own child. He chose option B. It wasn't blindness. It was a lack of options. But that doesn't mean he didn't try to fix the boy. For those final 3 years, Marcus dragged Commodus to the Danube front. He forced the 19-year-old to live in the mud, to attend war councils, to learn the boring, grinding administration of state. It was a clash of 2 alien worlds. Marcus was an intellectual ascetic. He ate plain food. He read until his eyes hurt. He hated violence. Commodus was a golden boy. He was physically perfect, tall, blonde, incredibly strong. He didn't care about logic. He cared about applause. He was obsessed with gladiator history. He didn't want to command legions from a tent. He wanted to fight beasts in the Colosseum while the crowd chanted his name. Imagine the dinner conversations in that tent. The father tries to discuss the nature of virtue. The son wants to talk about a new shipment of lions from Africa. Marcus surrounded Commodus with the best tutors in the world. He appointed Pompeianus, his most trusted general and son-in-law, to watch over him. He built a cabinet of Kronigans, old, serious men to guide the young prince. Marcus was betting everything on the hope that the system could constrain the individual. But he missed the psychological damage he was inflicting by forcing Commodus to live a Stoic life he hated, by constantly measuring him against a standard of perfection he could never reach. Marcus may have broken his son's mind. Commodus grew to resent the old men. He grew to resent the war. He just wanted to go home. As the winter of 180 AD approached, the tragedy ripened. The war against the tribes was almost won. One more year of campaigning, and the northern frontier would be secure forever. But Marcus was running out of time. His body held together for decades by opium, and willpower was finally quitting. He lay in his camp at Vindobona, modern Vienna. The plague, or perhaps cancer, was consuming him. He called Commodus to his bedside. He didn't get smothered by a pillow. He spoke his final wishes. He begged Commodus to finish the war. Do not leave the mission unfinished, he urged. Protect the borders. Commodus nodded. He promised. But as he looked at his dying father, Commodus wasn't thinking about duty. He was thinking about the bright lights of Rome, the chariot races, and the warm baths. Marcus closed his eyes, believing he had done enough to prepare the boy. He believed he had left behind a philosopher king in training. He was wrong. He had left behind a bored teenager with absolute power. And the moment Marcus's heart stopped beating, the golden age of Rome would stop with it. March 17th, 180 AD. Vindobona. The camp is quiet. The snow is melting, turning the ground into a slurry of mud and ice. Inside the imperial tent, the breathing of Marcus Aurelius grows shallow. He covers his head with his sheets. It is an ancient gesture of resignation, a signal that he is done fighting. He has battled the Parthians, the Germans, the plague, the Senate, and his own failing body for 19 years. He is 58, but he looks 80. The captain of the guard enters. He asks the emperor for the password of the day, the ritual that keeps the cave secure. Marcus lowers the sheet. He looks at the soldier with tired, rheumy eyes. He whispers his final command, a sentence that carries the weight of a dying era. Go to the rising sun, for I am already setting. It is a perfect exit line. He isn't just dismissing the guard. He's acknowledging the shift of power. To his son, the rising sun, he turns his face to the wall, and then silence. The last of the 5 good emperors is gone. What happens next is exactly what Marcus feared. Within weeks, Commodus makes his move. He ignores his father's dying wish to secure the border. He finds the war boring. He finds the mud cold. He negotiates a hasty, shameful peace treaty with the tribes Marcus had spent a decade defeating. He buys them off with Roman gold. Commodus packs up the army and heads back to Rome for a triumph he didn't earn. The historian Cassius Dio, who lived through this transition, wrote the epitaph for the age. Our history now descends from a kingdom of gold to one of iron and rust. The fall of Rome didn't happen in a day. It began in that moment of rust. The discipline eroded, the corruption spread, the borders eventually collapsed by all metrics. Marcus Aurelius failed. He didn't save the empire from the plague. He didn't finish the war. He left the throne to a madman. But history plays the long game. While the empire turned to dust, something else survived. Remember those private journals? The ones he wrote by candlelight in the plague tents? They should have been lost. They were never meant to be seen. Marcus likely gave orders for them to be burned, just like he burned the traitor's letters. But someone, a servant, a secretary, a fan, disobeyed. They saved the scrolls. For centuries, the text disappeared, copied by monks, whispered about by scholars, until it re-emerged to become the Bible of resilience for the Western world. Why? Why does a book written by a Roman emperor 2,000 years ago still fly off the shelves today? Because modern Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotion. It's about survival. Look at your world right now. You might not be commanding a legion on the Danube, but you have your own wars. We have lived through a global pandemic. We watch borders shift and economies tremble. We deal with toxic bosses, ungrateful children, and the crushing anxiety of the digital age. We are all in the tent at Carnuntum. Marcus Aurelius reaches across the centuries, grabs you by the shoulders, and says, "Stop arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." He teaches us that we cannot control the chaos outside. We can't control the traffic, the stock market, or the opinions of others. But we can control the inner citadel. We can choose how we react. We can choose to stand up when we want to collapse. We can choose to do the right thing even when no one is watching. And even when it feels like the world is ending. He didn't write the Meditations as a victor. He wrote it as a man who was struggling just like you. And if he could find peace in the middle of a plague-ridden war zone, maybe, just maybe, you can find it too. The empire fell, the statues broke, but the mind of Marcus Aurelius stands undefeated. If this journey into the mind of the philosopher king resonated with you, please subscribe and turn on notifications. We have many more lost stories to uncover, and I have a question for you. What is the one external event you are letting control your happiness today? And how can you take that power back? Let me know in the comments. I read them all. See you in the next chapter.